Good morning, Shadow of the Golden Dome. Happy Sunday morning, and welcome to another interview. This morning, I'm excited and more than honored to chat with Terry Hanratty. Terry is Notre Dame class of 1969, quarterback of the 1966 national championship team, two-time All-American, two-time Super Bowl champ, more recently a 2025 College Football Hall of Fame inductee, and host of Hanratty's Huddle, a podcast you can listen to almost anywhere podcasts are listened to. Terry joins us this morning from New Canaan, Connecticut. Terry, thank you for being here, sir. How are you?
My pleasure, Gene. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. And I'm really, really honored to have you, former player and national champion, on the show. I can't wait to get into this. So I'd love to start this where I start most of these, particularly ex-players. So you're brought up in Pennsylvania, Butler. You attend Butler Senior High School, and then you end up at the University of Notre Dame. What was your recruitment process back in those days? What did it look like, and what influenced your decision to end up in South Bend?
Well, the recruiting process back then was a lot different from what it is today. I mean, I was in a high school, Butler High School. In fact, that's where President Trump was shot in Butler, PA.
Hmm.
And I know the spot very well. But back in the day, we were probably, I would say, one of the strongest programs in the country. And my high school coach had 20, I think it was 62 Division I players in a 20-year span. So there was a lot of coaches that came through our area, and I was about in the middle of that whole 62 people. So we had a lot of the coaches come through, and you're only allowed two trips back then. So I took one to Michigan State, and I loved Duffy Daugherty. I thought he was a great coach and a great person, and I enjoyed the players up in Michigan State, so we got along very well. And John Ray was uh, who was the defensive coordinator for Aaron at Notre Dame, was the recruiter for Western Pennsylvania. And my high school coach, Art Bernardi, late Art Bernardi, he said, listen, back in the day, nobody really traveled. The first plane trip I was ever on was when I went to visit Michigan State. So everybody sort of stayed within state or maybe one state over. But, it was strange. My coach would say, listen, you're not going to Florida. So don't cheat those people. Go down there and just take a trip just to take a trip. Or California. No, but you're not going to Southern Cal. So, be honest with these people. Pick 4 or 5 schools that they're in the area that you're really interested in. And obviously Notre Dame was one of them. But John Ray, who was the recruiter back then, he said, listen, Arrow's going to be in Pittsburgh on a certain day. Can you go down and have lunch with him? Pittsburgh is about 30 miles away. Well, sure, I'd love to. So I went down and met him at it was the Hilton Hotel back then in the coffee shop there. And I can remember looking at the menu and saying, I saw the steak sandwich. No one could afford steak back then. But I saw on the menu, steak sandwich for like $3.75. And I'm saying to myself, it's going through the process. I said, is Eric going to think that I'm gouging him if I go for the steak? So I went for the club sandwich for $1.75, and I got French fries to boot. So maybe it boosted it up there. That was the whole thing back then. There wasn't this big craziness you have now. But I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours with Era, and we talked football, obviously, but most of it was just about life in general and whatnot he expected of me and what Notre Dame has to offer me and what I have to offer Notre Dame. And I went away from that. And I went home and I told my mother, I said, Mom, I'm going to Notre Dame. She said, well, I thought you were going to go to Michigan State. Well, I said, listen, I just spent a couple hours with the person I want to spend the next 4 years with. I think Coach Parsegian was a great coach, great person, and I want to be with him. And the hardest part I had to do was call Duffy Daugherty because Duffy sort of thought was ready to commit to Michigan State. So here I was, a 17-year-old kid, and I got to pick up that telephone and call Michigan State and talk to Duffy and tell him that I'm not coming to. He spent the next 20 minutes, and I thought it was going to be some rude, yelling, screaming at me, whatnot. And he spent the next 20 minutes telling me what a great program Notre Dame is, what a great coach Eric Parsegian is. He said, we're going to try to beat your ass, no problem. I said, Coach, that's what I expect. And he could not have been more of a gentleman. And to this day, I root for Michigan State unless Notre Dame is playing them.
It's awesome. Were there any other schools at all in consideration? I know you said Florida. I mean, realistically, the logistics back then not in the picture, but were there any other Midwestern schools that you even thought about?
Michigan State was about the only one
Okay.
because we were like my high school coach. That was so true. He got you in the office and say, listen, narrow this thing down. Be true to these people. Don't go off and take trips just because you want to take trips. Be true. So, I talked obviously to Paterno at Penn State, but that was not what I wanted to do at all. And Michigan State was a definite number two. I mean, Notre Dame just jumped leapfrog over everybody, but Michigan State was number two, and sort of was, you were finished with it back then. You didn't drag it on. You didn't bring the hats out to this, and I'm gonna pick this hat, that hat, and put this white shirt on there, and that kind of stuff. No, there wasn't anything involved, anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't the Hollywood production it seems to be now with every
No,
kid.
not at all.
No. So this is one of the things I really wanted to have you speak about. I've read plenty of books, plenty of articles about Coach Era. You played for him at the highest level. You won a national championship. What was it about Coach that made him the legend he is? What about his leadership style, his management style? What was his special sauce? What was it that made him who he is, who we talk about?
But for number one, he was a true person. I mean, you could believe what he told you. Number one. And Era was, he was more than football. He was more than X's and O's. He cared about you because back then you got to realize, kids like myself included were away from home for the first time. They're going to be homesick. They've never traveled to a different state. They never took an airplane trip. So that's why the NCAA back then were did not allow freshmen to play on the varsity because they wanted you to have that 1 year to get acclimated to the academics and to being away from home for the first time ever for most guys. And so, and Aaron knew all that. And Aaron was brilliant at many things, but the one thing is when you look at how he positioned players, when he first got there, Pete Duranko, who was a great defensive lineman and he played in the pros at defensive line, was a running back. Snowden was a running back, and he was another guy who's 6'5" and 250. Put him on the offensive line. He played 10 years in the NFL, in the offensive line. And John Hewitt was like a third-team quarterback, and Eric won him the Heisman Trophy. And Jack Snow was sort of a, okay, wide receiver, no big deal. All-American, played 10, 12 years for the LA Rams. Aaron knew he could look at talent, he could look at a person and know exactly where he wanted him to be. And he was right on, large percentage of that.
I, as I'm listening to you talk about the, kids being homesick and everything, leaving home for the first time, back prior to the technology we have now, where you and I can video chat and you can FaceTime and you can connect with your family and friends way easier than you could then, recruiting had to be a heck of a lot harder, right? To ask a kid to leave Pennsylvania and come to South Bend or recruit in any other state and leave when really, when you pull away out of that driveway, you don't see your folks until what they come to a game in the fall or the holidays. It had to be a heck of a lot harder to convince kids to leave their home state and come to schools. Do you think there's legitimacy to that?
I think 100%. I think it was easy for the in-state coaches to keep the kids, and very difficult for the coaches because if you looked at the rosters back then at school, Penn State, for instance, you look at the roster, most of these kids from Pennsylvania, and a couple from across the river in New Jersey, and maybe one or two from Ohio, but they were just pretty much local kids. And that's why people didn't travel when Lou Alcindor, I don't know, many people out there remember who that is, when he went from New York City to Los Angeles, California, everybody said, what the hell? There's not a basketball school between those two cities. And, it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Hmm.
And for him to make that move was huge. It was huge. Everybody's going, whoa, that's wild. But that was the same era that, I was in. And nobody, and people, that made people stood out when you saw that.
What do when you take a step back and look at the college football landscape now compared to years past, what do you What's your take on all of this? We don't need to do the deepest of dives into NIL and everything, but what do you think about recruiting today? What it looks like for young athletes, student athletes today, and just the culture around recruiting. I mean, do you just look at it and say, what the heck's going on here? Do you think it's good for the sport, bad for the sport, incorporating the revenue sharing and the direction we're headed? What do you think about how it looks today?
Well, I don't want to sound like an old timer, but right now what's happening to college sports is very scary to me because I think you're seeing the demise of the college athlete, the true amateur. And the NIL, should kids get paid? We never got paid. We got our and I've been a firm believer. The payment really is what you do in the classroom because that projects you on for the next 40 years and from away from your university. And people don't realize that the schools pay a lot of money to put kids on the field to teach them football so they can project to the NFL what they're worth and what their value is. So, that's the whole thing that, nobody takes into consideration anymore. It costs a lot of money to run these programs. And I feel sorry for the bottom half of all the conferences because these teams do not have the kind of money. The Notre Dames, the Michigans, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Southern Cal, whoops, they're going to all succeed because they got big endowments and they can afford stuff like that. But when you get the lower tier of all these conferences or the other the conferences away from the Power Five, I don't know how they're going to afford their football program because it's very expensive. Then if you look at that, the football program pays for every other sport in the university. So if you take away the football, you're taking away the volleyball, you're taking away the softball, you're taking away men's basketball. They don't make any money at that. Very few schools do. So it scares me, and I don't think it's going in the right direction at all.
Yeah, it just feels like you're going to parse out like this top tier of programs that have all this money to throw at kids, and you know you're going to have you might have two or three kids that can really play and can really ball out that'll want to stay home, or they have sentimental connection to a school. And you'll have those issues, right? Those situations. You had like Ashton Jonty at Boise State. Now I don't know what his connection was with the school there, but standout player on a team that made it to the playoff and then they get eliminated. But you're gonna have the Notre Dames, the Alabamas, those the top echelon just kind of take the talent in this pay for play look like a pay for play model. I just don't know how the smaller schools, like you said, how they sustain anything and can't even support the other programs. So it's definitely something I feel has to be reined in. I just don't, what does that look like? I don't know, but there has to be some kind of organization of the chaos,
And through all this, the NIL and all the movement, we've never heard anything about the academics, and that's the scary part.
right?
Because when you look at this, 1%, top 1% is going to make all the money. The quarterbacks in the NIL are going to make all the money. Then it's going to sort of trickle down to the offensive linemen. But it's a very scary situation because the kids are not getting the academics. They're not getting involved with the student body. I have as many friends now from the football at Notre Dame as I do that are non-football. And these guys that's how you really have a real rounded person. You got to incorporate everything in your university. And I love being just sitting around chatting about anything, whether it be politics or football in the dormitory. First of all, kids don't live in a dorm anymore.
Mhm.
Everybody can't wait to move off campus, so that takes them away from the student body, which I don't like at all. And there's so many things that are going wrong, I think, in college sports that's so scary for me.
Yeah. Well, you talked about this is a good segue to something I wanted to ask you about. You talked about how you still have a lot of connections from your playing days. Who are some of your closest friends from the playing days? Who do you still keep in touch with and connect with on a fairly regular basis?
Well,
Sounds like quite a few.
with Notre Dame, I mean, Rocky Blair is very close. We keep in close contact. George Kunz, who was a great offensive lineman for Notre Dame. George Gedicke, he's another great offensive lineman at Notre Dame. And so, we sort of, you know, keep in touch. But it's sad because we're all in our 70s. And if you look at the list of guys, some of them aren't around anymore. And
Mhm.
that's the very sad part about it.
And one of these questions I just kind of wanted to ask after watching some tape this morning, prepping to talk to you. You and Jim Seymour connected for a lot of passing yards. I wanted to ask you something about the modern day athlete versus the athlete back then. So I'm watching game film of you Purdue against Purdue with Jim Seymour, and I think he still holds the record for receiving yards in a game, 270 or 280 against Purdue. I believe
Yeah,
that still
we
stands.
did all right that day.
So I'm seeing, it looks to me from the tape like a big bodied wide receiver. He almost looked like a tight end out there. And I wanted to grab his stats and I didn't, but just on the game film, it stands out. He looks like he's much taller than most of the secondaries up against, much wider, but he's still getting behind the defense. So you caught him behind the defense a ton in that game. What is what was the wide receiver position like back then versus today? Was it a bulkier, was it a bigger athlete then compared to the more wiry speedsters today? And what was it about Jim that made him so prolific at that position?
Well, Jim, first of all, he's 6'4".
Okay.
Most of your receivers are 5'10", 5'11", maybe.
Hmm.
But Jim was 6'4", and you're right, he was big in the shoulders. So he could really, like a power forward, he could go up and grab the ball. But no, and he had a deception speed. Now, he was a track man in high school also, ran the hurdles. So when those long legs start going, they blew by a lot of people. And that was a fun day we had there. That
Yeah.
that Purdue game. The part of funny part about it, not funny, but that game was my high school. We'll go back real quick. Back then is sort of the pecking order. You didn't throw the ball back then. When I was a junior, I played defense. I was safety on defense, and I got in sparingly at quarterback when they wanted to throw the ball a little bit. And I didn't start at quarterback until my senior year. Then we averaged like 35 points a game, and we had really a great, very good team. And I obviously went on from there. But the next game, I started only 9 games in high school at quarterback. My 10th game, starting as a quarterback, was against Purdue on national TV. So everybody said, "Well, he doesn't have the game experience." So, like they're talking about Carr and Minchie. They don't have game experience. I said, "Hell, I was 18. They're probably 20." So there was a big difference in ages back then. But we had fun. I mean, Jim was a, a, a chore to throw to. We had other great ones too, with Bob Glaggio and Rocky Blyer and Nick Eddy, and everybody caught the ball and we had fun. And that was back when people, when we threw it for 300 yards, that was a big deal. But now,
Hmm.
kids do that in a half. We did
Right.
back then. It was probably 70-30 run to pass, so it was a much different game.
Okay, you play at Notre Dame, you have all these accolades, you do a bang up job, national title, All-American. I know you were in the running for Heisman all 3 years.
Right,
Um, okay, now we're in the NFL. Played with Terry Bradshaw at the Steelers. Played with Steve Spurrier with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I
right,
think you played 1 year there. Um,
yeah.
how did Notre Dame prepare you for the pros, and what was the league like then compared to the league we have today?
It was again, a huge difference. And what Notre Dame, the preparation was that we did so much more things in college than most schools did. We audibled a lot. We called a lot of plays from the line of scrimmage. We did. Era was very inventive that way, and we saw a lot of more sophisticated defenses. Playing in the D1 division. So it was a challenge to go into the NFL, but I didn't think as big as most people would think it would be, especially from the quarterback perspective. But it was, back, you got to figure from college and pros, we didn't have one guy over 300 pounds. Now, every lineman in college, D1, is over 300 pounds. So it's a much bigger, but I think back then it was much more reckless. I mean, we had a defense that was at Pittsburgh that was just incredible with Mel Blount and J.T. Thomas and all these guys. I mean, they come up. I don't think they could play today because they would be out of the game in the first quarter because they hit too hard. And we had the Joe Green and the L.C. Greenwoods and the Jack Ham and the Lambert, and we had phenomenal uh, defense. But starting my rookie year, coming from the great places that we played at in Pittsburgh and the great stadiums and whatnot. We had Pitt Stadium, which was an old decrepit stadium until Three Rivers Stadium was built one year. But we won our first game my rookie year. Then we lost 13 straight. And I had lost 13 games, going back to Little League football and up till that stage. I'd never lost 13 games in my life. So that was a craziness about the sport, but Chuck Noll was brilliant also, as era was. He turning things around, putting guys in the right position, and we started shooting uphill from there.
Do you still connect with some of the players that you played with in the pros as well, and and network with them still?
Yeah, last year we had the Steelers had a big reception for our first Super Bowl reunion for our first Super Bowl team. And again, there was like 19 guys that aren't around anymore.
Hmm.
It was sort of sad that way. And but we had a great time. And Mel Blount has a charity dinner every year in Pittsburgh where like 800 people show up at this thing. It's a huge black tie event. I go in for that, and I go into the golf outings in Pittsburgh, and I have a lot of connection with Rocky Blyer, and we talk on the phone a lot and whatnot. And so there's a real connection there. But it's a little different from college to the pros. Because in college, everybody's single. Everybody's looking for they have the academics to do it and the athletics. In the pros, it's more of a business because a lot of guys on the team are married with kids, and it's a different atmosphere whatsoever. So I think I've had more bonding with the college kids than I did with the pros, but both all very close. Very Jack Ham and the Lamberts of the world, they're all dear friends.
Very cool. Very cool. I so you so you Notre Dame to the NFL, have this awesome career. Now you transition after football and you're on Wall Street for 30 plus years.
Right.
Did your experiences along the way kind of help you to excel in a career on Wall Street? Were there things that you were able to
Very,
take?
very much so. Because I was a trader, which means I traded stocks. And we traded for big institutions. If people out there don't know what this is, when you see not anymore, but back then, the floor of the exchange was just madness. Well, we were the people upstairs telling them what to do, our different brokers. And so and you had, what football taught you was that I had, especially a quarterback, you had 3 seconds to make a decision. So you had to live or die with that decision. Or if you made a mistake, you go on to the next play. The same thing with being a trader. You have a lot of things that are screaming, yelling back and forth. You have to make a quick decision whether you want to buy it, whether you want to sell it, what do you want to do with it. And sometimes you're going to be, most of the time you're right, thank God. And sometimes you're going to be wrong, but you have to live with those mistakes and just try to do better the next time. So I think the segue was perfect for me, and it was a lot easier, but it was a close knit there.
A lot of quick decisions made under heavy heavy pressure,
No, for
right?
years, yeah, it was wild. It was
Are
really wild.
are you still active in the trading space?
No, not at all. I've retired, and I'm just doing other stuff now, so it's fun.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's talk. So let's talk about what you've got going on today, and then talk a little bit of Notre Dame, and then I want to catch up with your son too, who played offensive line for the Irish. Um, so you are now hosting a podcast. I wanted to touch on this and pay some attention to this. Hanratty's Huddle. You and I believe Rob Adams.
Yeah, and Dave Toromeo,
Okay.
Dave and Rob are the real brains behind this thing. I can do all the talking and that stuff, but they know how to work the mechanics of this and whatnot. And they're all in the business, so it was a good marriage between the two of us. I had no idea how to do. I have trouble getting on Zoom, but these guys do all the other hookups. But we started about a year or so ago, and it was one of these things. And we like to, you see so many podcasts out there. There's a
Hmm.
lot of yelling, screaming, swearing, and that stuff. We're not prude, but we don't think that's right for the airwaves.
Hmm.
But and there's one thing I don't want people to forget is the history of the sport. So we're going to do a lot of older stuff. We're going to do, a lot of interviews with older guys. We're trying to put together a network where Hanratty's Huddle will be number one. And we have golf, we have baseball, we have basketball, older guys coming in and telling their old stories. we don't want them to forget about how crazy Jack Lambert was. So I tell a lot of Jack Lambert stories, and or Rocky Blair, and I don't ever want anybody to forget about his military, how he got shot in Vietnam. So we bring that up. We had Rocky on as an interview, and Bradshaw and I were, we did two. We Terry and I sat down to do the podcast, and the podcast usually lasts about a half hour.
Mhm.
Well, we talked for an hour and a half, and the two guys, Rob and Dave, they didn't say anything. They were just sort of wide-eyed because Terry and I were going back and forth with these crazy stories and those jokes and whatnot, and we ended up, cutting it up into two shows. But it was really fun to do. In fact, he wants to write a book, the two of us, and make it just a humorous book because we have a lot of stories about different guys and whatnot. And so we want to, of course, do the what's happening today, but also want to incorporate the history of all these sports because there's a lot of people out there, we're in contact with AARP because that would be our audience. That everybody that we want to contact is within AARP, so that would be a nice marriage for us. But it takes a while. We're in no hurry, and each week I think we get a little better, and we get I think a real good basis to get something really entertaining for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. How often are you recording? Are you doing it every week, every other
We
week,
do it
or?
once a week. We do it once a week. We record on Thursday, usually on either Wednesday or Thursday. Then it goes on, and you can just Google it, and you'll see
Mhm.
Hanratty's Huddle, or why Spotify has the Hanratty's Huddle on, and it pops right up, and you can listen to the different segments, and we have the two at Bradshaw were just hysterical. I thought. I mean, we just got off with the craziness of sports, and it was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually Googled it while you were talking, and it does come up. I mean, you can find it YouTube, Spotify, Amazon. It's all over. You've got it on Apple Podcasts, so everywhere that people listen to podcasts. So you've got it very well distributed. There's no doubt about that. So
Just
are you enjoying it?
everybody, I'm enjoying it a lot because you get to talk about the old timers, and I knew who Johnny Lujack was. I knew who
Mhm.
Angelo Bertelli was because back then people talked about these guys who were former quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, well before I ever thought of being a quarterback. And I love the history of things, and I don't want kids to forget about history. Whether it's football or anything, you got to remember your history. And we just want to show the kids the difference of today and yesterday. I mean, it's a big difference, but it's still the same sport. You're still in football. You still have to block and tackle.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing, and that's what we want to do. Marriage the two of them.
No, it's great. How did you and Rob and Dave come together? Did you know those two gentlemen, or how did that happen?
Dave and I connected initially. Then he brought Rob into the group, and the three of us have been, when we get together, I think it turns out very well. I mean, like I said, they're both very technical, so they know how to produce stuff like this. And Dave teaches at a university here at sports, and Rob is on the air and he does a lot of broadcasting locally. So it's a good marriage.
Awesome. No, it's great. I listened to a couple also last night. I think the presentation is really good. The audio is great too. I think it sounds great. Do you guys do any videos as well? Is it strictly audio? Do you ever marriage the video and
We've
the?
done both.
You
We've
have,
done
okay.
both, and we're really looking for a studio. You don't need a studio. I mean, you have a great. I'm sure you're in your house,
I am,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but you could actually say you're in a studio. You have great presence there. So, but we want to look at a little more formal and get a little
Sure.
more interviews in there. And I got guys from the Steelers, and I can make a call to a lot of people and get a lot of people on the show. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. You have a more formal setting and you can have the two of you on camera there and interview. That'd be really, really cool.
Yeah,
And that's kind of
exactly.
what you're building up to at this point, right?
That's it. Yeah, we're going slow. We want to do it right.
Yeah.
That's the key.
No, understood. No, looking forward to seeing how that develops. Let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about Notre Dame today. But before we do that, if you don't mind, catch the listeners up with your son Connor. Played lineman for the
He's
Irish.
an offensive guard for Notre Dame. He played very well. Couldn't play his last year because he had concussion problem. So he went and got his 1 year MBA at Notre Dame, and he's working on Wall Street. He's been in investment banking for about 8 years now, and he recently got engaged to a lovely lady. Hillary Chan, and so we're looking forward to that. And he's doing very well. It looks great.
Fantastic.
When he played about 310, and right now he weighs 220.
Yeah,
He's
he
lost
lost some of that
all that
lineman
weight.
weight.
He did. He lost all that unnecessary because back then they were eating 6,000 calories a day
Jeez.
to keep their weight up.
Yeah.
And now he get back, eating normal food,
Right.
and he just weight just fell off him. So which is a lot healthier for him. So
That's
that's great.
fantastic. Is he on the East Coast with you there?
He's in New York, yeah,
Oh, fantastic.
yeah,
Okay, excellent.
right down the
Okay,
street.
so I'd love to have your opinion on the Irish today. We were talking a little bit offline about the quarterback competition, some of which we can't really share, but I want your opinion on the quarterback race. What's it look like to you? What do you think about Marcus Freeman? What do you think about the Fighting Irish today?
Say, Mark, when you look at Marcus, he looks like he's doing the same thing that Era did. Era was a great recruiter. Marcus is a great recruiter.
Yes.
He's bringing in Era. We had a lot of depth back then. We had a lot of players that can go in case of some injury, and you got to have them because someone's going to get hurt. So you got to have people to plug in. And you see that with Marcus today. We haven't had this kind of depth in many years. And he's going after kids that, Notre Dame was never recruited before. And everybody said, well, we can't what's killing Notre Dame football is the academics. Well, Marcus proved everybody wrong. You still have the academics. Notre Dame's one of the few schools still talks academics. And he's bringing in these great players. And they're talking about, these kids 4 for 40, 4 years. Marcus finally got it in their head. This is what we do here at Notre Dame. And I think he is, if you see him connect with the kids, the connection is wonderful, but you can see the respect that he has with the kids, and that's even more important. And I think what he's developed there is something that could go along for a lot of years. I mean, he's really put in the great groundwork. And I think everybody says, "Well, who's the quarterback? Who's the quarterback?" And I haven't seen a practice yet. I know Minchie's really good. I know Carr's really good. And I think I have full trust in Marcus to pick the right person.
Yeah.
And the guy who's not picked better stay loose because this is a contact sport and there's always injuries and you get in and show yourself. So you got to stay in the game. But I don't want to see anybody transferring. When
Yeah.
when I came into Notre Dame, we had my class had four all-state quarterbacks. One from Baltimore, that's Coley O'Brien. One from Ohio, Bob Belden. One from Indiana, Mike Franger, and myself from Pennsylvania. And we all competed against one another, I think, and made each other better. And I think that's what you actually have to need. I mean, now they recruit one quarterback and they have to say, okay, we're not going to recruit any other quarterback. And to me, that doesn't really put enough pressure on the kid really to perform.
Yeah, yeah. I think if we've got a quarterback competition this late into the fall, that's definitely a good problem, not a bad problem. So
I think they know right now, to be honest with you. I
you'd
mean,
think they'd have to, right? This close to the
we
game.
we battled it out, Coley and I, all spring long, and I took all the reps towards the end, and won the job. It wasn't announced. He came back and it was everybody announced it 2 weeks ahead of time. But
Yeah.
I don't know why they do that because it's not like it's that big a surprise. You're
No.
going to run the same offense no matter what. But I think it's great that we have two choices. That's the real good. We're two quality quarterbacks. That's good to have choices.
Have you had the opportunity to meet Coach Freeman? Have you gotten to chat with him at all?
I did. They're having a weekend for me for the Hall of Fame thing this year at the Southern Cal game.
Oh, great.
So I'll be out there. The game's the 18th. I'll go out on the 15th, and I get a chance to spend some time with Marcus, and I can spend time with Pete Papakwa, athletic director, and just sort of casually work into the weekend. But maybe talk to the team, and have. And I was out there a couple of years ago, spring practice, and I got to meet the quarterbacks. Really, really good kids. I mean,
Hmm.
they're fun to talk to, and chatted with Marcus for a while, and no, it's all good there. It really is, and it's just and again, it all trickles down from the top. Marcus is doing the right stuff, and he's really performing well. And I'm so happy for him because I think he really deserves it. He's where he belongs. Those first two games this year are going to be real telltale.
Yeah.
They got to get down to Miami. In Miami, it's going to be hotter here. It's going to be humid. I mean, it's
Oh
not,
yeah.
it's hot and humid in South Bend. It's nothing compared to what it's like in Miami.
Right.
So they're gonna need a great performance on the road, to start out with. So then they got to buy. Then they come back with Texas A&M. So those are two within the first 3 weeks. They're going to pretty much define what their season is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have a really good idea what we got behind center and for the year. I mean, that's a gauntlet to start. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, the last time we played, of course, we might have already exercised those demons when we played Penn State in the playoff, but the last time we played there in the regular season, 17 or 18, I think, and that the turnout was not great. So,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
but this is a different team. So you kind of touched on it. How often are you back on campus? Every year, every other year for a
I
game,
was
or?
there, and I bought when Connor was there. I was there every weekend, and I bought a home in South Bend. I've since sold it when he graduated.
Mhm.
And so you don't get back as much.
Yeah,
But I'll be back for the Southern Cal game, obviously, and looking forward to it because we got a lot of guys that have a nice cocktail party on Friday night before the game, and we got a lot of people coming to that. And
good.
then Saturday we got the athletic or they gave me a box for all my friends and family to come. So it's going to be, I
Oh,
guess, there's
that's cool.
introductions on the field before the game or after the first quarter or sometime. I'm not sure of that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Really,
Very
it's
cool. Very
great,
cool.
great to get back. And it's amazing the changes every time you go back. It's wild what they do out there.
Well, buildings grow like weeds out there on campus. I mean, they're
Yes, they
building
do.
something every other month, it feels like.
And they got a
Um,
new they got a new Goob going up.
yeah,
It's
yep,
hard to
yeah,
believe that that one is already too old.
yeah. Oh yeah, they keep expanding the athletic complex, but we keep winning. They keep building. It's a good problem.
Get that money flowing in.
Keep it coming. All right, so your 2025, your 2025 College Football Hall of Fame inductee. What'd that feel like when you got that notification? And that is, I believe you were officially inducted in Vegas this fall, correct?
The
This.
December 9th is the official date where they make the formal introduction, but they announced it, told me about last year. And so it was good. It was very good, but it sort of a little strange in football because you have if you're a baseball player and you're a pitcher, it's your ERA, it's your win-loss record, it's your
Hmm.
strikeout. It's you against the batter.
Hmm.
If you're in basketball, you're the point guard and you're manipulating the ball around to make one or two players, whatnot. But in football, you're the quarterback. You get all the credit, you get all the pain when you when you have a loss, but that's fine. It sort of balances itself out. But if the offensive line wasn't successful, I'm not successful. If the running backs weren't, I wasn't. If the wide receivers, if the defense didn't get me the ball. In going to a Hall of Fame, I sort of feel a little guilt because there's so many guys that should be sharing it with me. And because if the defense didn't get me the ball, we couldn't perform well. So there's so many people involved in this thing that it's great to believe me, it's great to go into the Hall of Fame. But then there's a little caveat: you like to bring a lot of guys in with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I understand. It takes a team for sure, but you were a hell of a quarterback. So, I mean, you
Well, thank
definitely,
you.
definitely earned it. Okay, sir. So we're about to the end here. I want to do a little lightning round with you. I like to
Ah,
end with these. Okay, now most of the time, I always say lightning round, but usually some of these answers end up turning into something expanded. So don't feel bad if you need to, if it doesn't end up a lightning round. But thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll roll into these questions here. What is your favorite spot on campus? When you're
oh,
when you're on campus, where do you like to go?
easiest question known to man, the grotto.
The grotto. Okay.
That is we used to go when we had the pep rally. Then we went to Moreau Seminary to spend the night before the game when they showed us a John Wayne where we shoot them up and all that good action stuff. But we'd always stop at the grotto, and it's such a peaceful, wonderful spot to be. That's the easiest question going.
Favorite spot in South Bend for either lunch or dinner?
Wow. Let's do pizza at Rocco's.
I get that one a lot. Pizza at
Yeah,
Rocco's.
Rocco, that's great pizza there.
Agreed. Yeah. Yep. That's a popular answer. So we kind of touched on this during the interview, but who would you say your one or two best friends are from your football playing days that you keep in touch with? If you
Wow.
who's on your speed dial there?
Again, Gedeke, Kunz, Rocky, uh, Bob Glaggio. Those are probably the from Notre Dame. Those are probably the top.
Okay. Okay. What was the inspiration behind you wearing number five?
It's given to me.
It was given to you. I was wondering
Yeah.
if okay, you were issued it.
No, I wore number 11 in high school, and at the time you took anything, you were both just glad to be there.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
jersey, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Favorite football game you've ever played in? Doesn't matter, high school, pro, college.
The funny part about that is that football is leaves some bad memories. You've had all these supposedly great games, right? That you played in. Two games stick out with me in my whole football career. In high school against Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, Aliquippa High School, I threw five interceptions. Southern Cal at Notre Dame, five interceptions. As soon as I started thinking football, I started thinking those two games. And I keep thinking, I must have played something. I must have done something right somewhere. It's only two games. It's a curse. I don't know if other players, if they can only think of their bad games. But I mean, those things stick out, and you start, oh man, if I could have done this or that in those games. You don't see the ones where you threw three touchdown passes or won this or national championship. Those two just jump right out at you.
Were the picks against USC, were those in LA or South Bend?
Right in South Bend. I even did it at home.
Oh man. Favorite stadium you ever played in?
uh, uh, I'd have to Notre Dame regular grass.
Yes.
Then I'd have to jump up to Green Bay, Lambeau Field when the pros. That was that again regular grass. It was beautiful carpet. But then there were some really bad ones too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so you just segued into the question I had next, which was, do you prefer the turf or the natural grass? But I think I already have the answer.
Yes, natural grass done the right way. I mean, we had natural grass when I first went to Pittsburgh at Pitt Stadium. But yeah, the high school played there, Pitt played there, and we played there. By late October, early November, that field was just all a mud. So if that's going to be the case, then you can put the natural grass. But when they first started with the AstroTurf, that was a total disaster because I mean it was like, your floor with about that much padding on top, and there was this chemical in the turf, but when you got a burn on your arm if you slid in there, then you get infections. So there was, you had a lot of separations because of the impact of hitting that thing. Then you had the infections set into your arm because of what was in the carpet. So that was, but now the perfection, it looks like regular grass. I mean,
Hmm.
it's wild. That they've gotten so much better on that.
What is your favorite version of Notre Dame Stadium? The
Wow.
original, the expansion, and then now the behemoth that we've got, with the three additions there. What's your favorite version of the stadium?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously with Connor there, I was there for a lot of years when they put on the expansion. And I've talked to a few of my friends this way. When I played, we had 58,200 some odd seats. Now there's 80.
Hmm.
And I keep telling people, I said, is it me getting old? It seems louder with 60 than it does with 80. And they all agreed with me that you couldn't hear you. I couldn't. I had trouble. Many times I had to tell people to calm down. I couldn't call my signals out. But now it seems like, no problem. So
That's
I don't know,
interesting. That's interesting. You would think that the structures would like keep
hold
sound
it in.
in. Yeah,
Yes, I would
really.
think that too. But
Hmm.
the 60,000 sounded a lot. louder. You couldn't hear yourself think back in the day.
Wow.
And back then, I had much sharper hearing too. So you would think it
Yep.
would just be the opposite.
So I'm hearing the original or
The original,
the original.
David.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I'm going to end it here. What does the University of Notre Dame mean to you today?
it's your whole life. It really is. No matter where you go or what you do, when someone says, "Oh, where'd you go to school?" and you say Notre Dame, they perk up. Really? Wow. And you played football there? Wow. So it means an awful lot. And just the camaraderie, the friendship that you make back then. It was everybody was sort of had one thing in common. That was to go to class and play football and enjoy yourself. And it was truly 4 great years of my life.
Awesome. Um, Mr. Hanratty, I am honored that you took the
Please,
time to do
Terry.
this. Terry, I am honored you took the time to do this. Everybody watching this, check out Hanratty's Huddle. Been around about a year now. Fantastic stories about football and life. I cannot recommend it enough. I will post links to it on this interview. I know you've got a Facebook page. It's easy to Google. And then we're looking forward to a book with you and Terry Bradshaw at some point, I'm hearing.
That's, that's what he keeps telling me. That the guy's calling me. We're going to get ready to put this thing together. So
Okay.
we'll see.
All right. Fantastic. Terry, thank you very much, sir. Have a great day. Go Irish and enjoy your trip back to campus for USC.
All right. Thanks, you. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
sir. Take care. Bye bye. Bye, everybody.